Hello, you think you know me. I'm mathematics, but I'm not just a subject in a textbook. I'm a language. A language that you, humans, invented out of sheer necessity. For centuries, though, there was a question so fundamental, so tricky that even I struggled to find the words for it. A question that held you back.
Think about it. How do you build an argument around a total mystery? How can you possibly calculate with a number that, by its very nature, you don't know? This wasn't just some abstract puzzle, it was a wall. A giant brick wall standing in the way of progress. And to get through it, you first had to realize you were in a prison. In my youth, I was beautiful, but I was trapped. My only language was geometry, this really elegant world of shapes and lines and angles. The problem was, everything I could say had to be drawn. It was visual. It was intuitive, sure, but it was also a cage. I was literally living in a prison of pictures. See, in this world, a number was a line segment. Multiplication, that was just the area of a rectangle. But this created some really absurd limits. You want to know what a negative number is? Well, how can a line have negative length? It can't. It was basically impossible. I was completely tied to what you could physically draw in the sand, and honestly, I was getting desperate for a new way to speak. My liberation? It began in a city that was starting to fade. We're talking Alexandria, around 250 CE. The brilliant fires of Greek innovation were dimming, the whole Roman Empire was starting to crack at the seams. And right there in this shadow of a great city, one man was about to give me a voice I never, ever knew I could have. Now, before this guy came along, every single problem was this long, tangled story. You'd have to write out, find a quantity which, when you add it to 5 of its own kind, equals the number 12. I mean, it was just so clumsy, so inefficient. It buried all the deeper patterns under this huge mountain of words. And because of that, every problem was like a brand new maze you had to solve from the beginning. There were no general rules, no shortcuts. It was this grueling process of starting from scratch every single time. My own growth was just crawling along at a snail's pace. But then, a man named Diophantus of Alexandria did something completely audacious. He looked at that ghost that haunted every single problem, that unknown quantity, and he decided to just give it a name. He gave it a symbol. He called it arithmos, which literally just means the number. And the idea behind it was absolutely radical. Take this symbol for the thing you don't know and just treat it as if you already knew it. You could add it, you could subtract it, multiply it, all while following my existing rules. All of a sudden, the mystery itself became part of the calculation. And in that single moment, a new kind of power was unleashed. This wasn't just writing things down faster, it was a complete revolution in how you could think. It was the birth of algebra. I had finally found a language that could systematically hunt down and capture mysteries. Okay, let's take a real problem from Diophantus himself. Find 2 numbers whose sum is 20 and the sum of their squares is 208. Now, if you write that out in words, it's a total headache. But with symbols, oh, it's beautiful. You just call one number x, that means the other number has to be 20 minus x. You write out the equation, you just turn the crank of manipulation, and boom, the answer just appears. The numbers are 8 and 12. It's elegant. It's powerful. And that was the really crucial point. Once problems were translated into symbols, their hidden structure just became visible. You could suddenly see that wildly different questions were actually, deep down, the same type of problem. General methods were now possible. I wasn't just a random collection of disconnected puzzles anymore. I was finally becoming a system. But this brilliant new voice I'd just been given, it was almost silenced forever. After Diophantus, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Europe fell into a long, dark sleep. Libraries were burned, scholars fled, and I went quiet for a very, very long time. But, ideas are resilient. My new language, it traveled east. Diophantus's great book, the Arithmetica, was preserved and then translated into Arabic in Baghdad's legendary House of Wisdom. For centuries, Islamic scholars nurtured it, worked with it, expanded on it. And then, more than 1,000 years after it was first written, a Latin translation of it found its way into the hands of a French lawyer. And right here, this little seed that was planted in Alexandria and kept safe all those years in Baghdad, it finally began to flower in Europe. The man's name was Pierre de Fermat. And he was technically an amateur, a lawyer by trade, but he had one of the greatest mathematical minds of his age. He read Diophantus's book not like a student, but like a peer. He was having a conversation across time. So while he was working through one of the problems from Diophantus, Fermat scribbled a little note in the margin of the book. He posed a similar but vastly harder problem. And then he added this legendary tease. He claimed he had a truly marvelous proof, but the margin was just too narrow to write it all down. That one little note sparked a chase that lasted for 358 years. Generations of the world's greatest thinkers tried and failed to solve it. It took until 1995, using entire fields of mathematics that Fermat couldn't have even imagined, to finally prove what he had claimed in the margins of that ancient book. And that right there, that is the real power of giving the unknown a name. The simple puzzles that Diophantus had collected all those centuries ago, they became springboards. They launched questions that inspired brand new ideas, and ultimately they created entire new worlds of thought that he could never, ever have dreamed of. So why does any of this matter? Why does this 2,000-year journey mean anything to you? Because this way of thinking, this hunt for the unknown, it didn't just stay in the pages of old books. Oh no, it escaped, and it built the world that you are living in today. This whole symbolic way of thinking, using a letter to represent a mystery, is my fundamental language today. It's the engine of engineering, it's the logic behind economics, it's the absolute bedrock of computer science. Seriously, every single time you type a variable into a line of code, you are speaking the language that Diophantus first gave me. All of modern complexity, all of that incredible power, it all traces back to a single revolutionary act of faith from 2,000 years ago. The belief that if you can just give a name to what you don't know, you gain the power to find it. So now, when you look at a problem like this one, you see more than just a couple of numbers. You see a 2,000-year story of collapsing empires and secret knowledge and the relentless human drive to solve for X. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the simplest idea of all, having the courage to give a name to what you don't yet understand.